Thank you for joining us on EconoChat Let's Talk Business with Mr. Daniel Steinman. I am your hostess, Elsa Bitimiani. And, coming together today and having to share some great news for, the day-to-day person, waking up every morning, having a normal 8-to-5 job with a normal 8-to-5 salary, having to, just spend money on groceries and, living day by day, is that the bill has finally been gazetted, and I don't think anyone will be able to go to, the High Court, and say like, no, it's not going to work. We don't want this to happen in Namibia. And that is one of the four bills that have been put on the table in the National Assembly. So I don't know who we should thank. Should we thank Mr. Daniel Steinman?
You must thank me.
Yes. Or should we just thank, the Minister, Shimi, for this great news? But of course, Mr. Daniel Steinman, welcome to the show, of course. And you can go into details and share. I don't know if the listeners don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure you can share more details.
Thank you, Elsie. But first, before I go into the detail of the 4 amendment bills that you and I have been talking for the past nearly 3 months, I think we must now stop this recording every week, Elsie. Because you remember when we started more than 2 years ago, nobody called me. Not a single response.
Yeah.
And then very slowly, drips and drabs, somebody called me here and somebody stopped me there in the street, and somebody, when I went to a shop one day, even said, "Aren't you the guy who's talking on Radio Energy?" And I said, "Yeah, what did I do wrong?" I said, "No, I recognize you by your voice." So, but what has been happening in the last couple of months, since about March, April this year, is that I get called literally every week. Somebody who's got a problem and is asking me my advice, or somebody who doesn't know what to do with financing or an application or what have you, usually small business related.
Yes.
I said, no, we listen to what you and Elsie wat julle kwyt raak. And I said, well, I'm very happy. That is good to hear. But let's get back to what has been happening in this past week. And it is actually fantastic news. You can't exaggerate that too much.
Yeah.
Remember, you and I started talking at the beginning of, or the first half of July, of 4 amendment bills, of which notice was given by the Minister of Finance that these will be tabled, and that they refer, or the amendment bills are the Income Tax Act, the VAT Act, the Transfer Duty Act, and the Stamp Duty Act. And without repeating what we discussed in considerable detail then, you can summarize this by saying the amendments to all 4 of these acts will enable you and me to have a little bit more money in our pocket every month. That is in terms of the taxes that we pay. For small businesses, it will allow them more freedom, that they don't need to worry about VAT so much. The VAT threshold is doubled. And for people who can afford property, the cost of a property transaction is coming down a lot. Before we started, I explained to you that the first one, the Income Tax Act, is going to have a meaningful impact in your take-home pay and my take-home pay. The threshold on the VAT registration is going to have a meaningful impact on small businesses. The 2 adjustments to the stamp duties and the transfer duty, they will not have a big impact in your life and my life. Why? Because we don't buy $3 million houses. But for the people who are in that bracket, they will have a significant impact on any property deal below 3 million. So what you can see from what I've just said is that it means that lower value houses or lower income earners who can only buy a property for 600,000, 700,000, they will be much better off now. Those transactions, anything less than 3 million will no longer be encumbered by additional cost. The only thing that you will have to do is you will have to pay the lawyer who drew up the contract, and in most cases with properties below 1 million, it's not done by a lawyer, it's done by an estate agent. And the estate agent, you and that person agree on a certain rate before you actually sign for the house. So the point is, it's all about liquidity. It's going to affect liquidity for a very big part of the population, people with a job where they pay their tax. It's going to affect liquidity for small businesses. Don't need to worry about VAT. And it's going to affect liquidity in the lower spectrum of the property market. And within the next 6 months, we are going to see the changes. It's going to start filtering through.
Okay, on that note, Mr. Danesh Shaman, let's quickly go for a short break, and once we come back, we'll go into more detail in terms of liquidity.